The day I decided to end my marriage, I called Clara's office, but it wasn't her who answered. A young man with a crisp, clear voice picked up the phone. "Clara's in a meeting and can't be disturbed right now," he said. "Is there a message I can pass along to her?" He was her latest diversion, the new favorite. For once, I decided not to make a scene. I just kept my voice steady and told him, "Please tell her the divorce papers are on the bedside table." On my way to the airport, I tried calling her again. This time, a different male voice answered, equally professional. "This is Leo. Clara asked me to inform you that she's currently in a meeting. If it's urgent, you can let me know, and I will relay the message." I paused, holding the phone, a wave of exhaustion washing over me. This must be the new one, Evan. He didn't have an impressive degree or a background that would stand out in a city like ours, which was teeming with the best and brightest. And yet Clara had seen something in his resume, plucking him from obscurity and making him her personal secretary. Over the last year, he had been the source of countless arguments between us. I had even gone to her office once, demanding that human resources fire him. But Clara had protected him with a fierce determination. For a whole year he had been her shadow, traveling with her wherever she went. Now I was just tired. I was tired of the endless tug-of-war, a battle I was only now realizing was completely pointless. Ignoring the poorly veiled taunt in his voice, I simply said, "Please just let her know the divorce papers are on the bedside table. All she has to do is sign them when she gets home." "What?" I hung up before he could say another word. In the past, whenever we fought, I always imagined that if we ever truly divorced, I would cause an immense scene. I'd break things, yell, and ensure that if I was going to be miserable, she wouldn't get to be happy either. But now that the moment was finally here, I felt a strange and hollow sense of calm. I didn't pack anything. Every object in the house we shared felt tainted, making me sick to my stomach. The only thing I took with me was myself. Just before boarding my flight, a text from Clara lit up my phone. "I saw the divorce papers. What is your problem this time?" Even through the screen, I could picture her expression, pinched with annoyance. I didn't bother to reply. I just switched my phone to airplane mode. To be honest, we both knew exactly what the problem was. Ever since Evan became her secretary, Clara had been coming home later and later. There were no telltale signs like a stray hair on her clothes or the scent of another man's cologne. Instead, it was the increasingly long periods she spent staring at her phone, sometimes smiling to herself like a teenager experiencing her first crush. I had brought it up a few times, but Clara would calmly dismiss my concerns. "There's nothing going on," she'd say. "You're overthinking it." We fought about Evan constantly. I told her to reassign him, to move him to another department, but Clara insisted I was being unreasonable. I tried everything. I cried, I argued, I begged, and I even became hysterical. I once sat amidst the chaos of a room I had trashed, threatening her with a shard of a shattered porcelain vase. She just looked at me with cold eyes and said, "Leo, do you have any idea how pathetic you look right now?" A bitter chuckle escaped my lips at the memory. Yes, I was pathetic. I was like a man possessed, consumed by my love for her. Or perhaps I had simply invested too much of myself into our relationship. The mere thought of losing her was an agony I couldn't bear. The bottom line was, I was just unwilling to let go. I had been with her for 10 years, from the time I was a penniless student to the man everyone now respectfully called boss. How could someone she had known for only a year possibly steal her away from me? I tried to fix myself. I learned new recipes, tried to be more considerate, and made an effort to improve my appearance. I thought that if I could just compete with this stranger, I could win Clara back. But last night shattered that illusion. I had gone to pick her up from a bar where she'd had too much to drink. I found her sitting on the curb with a young man. He was dressed in a perfectly tailored dark suit, his long legs crossed casually, his sharp jawline softened by the glow of the streetlights. That handsome face, which might have seemed overly pretty when she was younger, had now matured with time, like a Feinanentum aging wine. It hit me then that we had once sat just like this, on a roadside curb years ago. I had brought her a new dish I had perfected. After taking a bite, she paused, and I grew nervous, thinking it wasn't to her liking. "What's wrong?" I asked. Clara looked up at me, a wide, genuine smile spreading across her face. "I was just thinking," she said. "How lucky am I to have such a wonderful husband?" I blushed. My face warmed despite the wintry air on the street. She wrapped her large coat around both of us, her white breath visible as she spoke. "When I get rich, Leo, I'll make sure you have your own big restaurant. We'll showcase that family sign of yours, and everyone in the city will know how amazing my husband is and how incredible his cooking tastes." I glanced up at her, and she looked down at me. Her beautiful dark eyes reflected the dazzling city lights behind me, and in them I could see my own smiling face. That was so long ago. So long, in fact, that if it weren't for this jarring moment, I might have forgotten it ever happened. Back then, her eyes were filled with nothing but me, and just as she promised, she got rich. But the person sitting by her side now wasn't me anymore. "So, how does it taste?" Evan asked, swinging his feet like a carefree boy. "I made these grilled rice balls myself. It took me quite a while." Clara held the simple rice ball with a gentle smile playing on her lips. "It's delicious." Meanwhile, the thermos of soup I had simmered for hours felt like a cruel joke. Clara glanced up and saw me standing there. She froze for a moment, her brow furrowing in annoyance. "What are you doing here?" Evan sized me up, a cheeky smile on his face as he waved. "Leo, right? I didn't realize you were so good-looking. Clara never mentions you at work. Oh, is this the midnight snack you brought for her?" He took the container from my hands and opened it. The rich aroma of fish soup, spiced with a hint of pepper, wafted into the cool night air. He took a deep, theatrical breath. "Smells amazing. Leo, you've got some serious skills." Then he glanced at me, a smirk playing on his lips. "Too bad Clara just ate. I brought these rice balls from home." He called her Clara so casually. A young man in his 20s, naive enough to issue a challenge without fear. Or perhaps it was Clara's favoritism that gave him such unshakable confidence. I turned to Clara. "So now even the best home-cooked meal isn't good enough for you, huh?" Her expression turned to ice. "Leo," she said, her voice sharp with warning. Evan, however, didn't seem upset. He just smiled and said with an air of profound honesty, "It's not about what you eat, it's about who you're with. When you're with someone you like, even a simple meal tastes amazing. But if you're with someone you can't stand, even a royal feast feels bland. Don't you think so, Leo?" I glanced at him and sneered. "Yeah, when it comes to a couple of dogs like you two, even eating shit probably smells good." Evan's face darkened, and he fell silent. Clara stood up, her expression grim. "Leo, that's enough." Not wanting to cause a bigger scene in public, I lowered my eyes. "Let's just go home." Clara finished her rice ball, called for a driver, and instructed him, "Make sure he gets home safe." She said it without a shred of concern for the fact that I was standing right there. Evan pouted as he got into the car, giving Clara a look that seemed almost like a plea. I watched him go, just a boy with a spark of youth about him. Even if he acted spoiled, his eyes were clear, just like mine used to be. He even resembled me a little. I wasn't naive enough to think Clara was searching for a younger version of me. She had always liked this type. Whether she was 20 or 30, she was always drawn to men in their early 20s. That night I didn't argue with her. I just grabbed my bedding and moved into the guest room. She didn't try to stop me. Before I closed the door, I asked her one last thing. "Clara, what is it that you really want?" I had loved her for 10 years. No matter how it ended, I felt I deserved to understand why. With a cigarette dangling between her fingers, she suddenly said, "Leo, I'm tired. The orange flame of her lighter flickered, casting shadows on her face as she puffed out a cloud of smoke and turned to me. "I'm tired of you being around all day, only ever asking me what I want to eat. I married a husband, not a private chef. Is that all you know how to do?" I stared at her, the smoke swirling between us. The girl who once held me close and whispered that her dream was to eat her husband's cooking for the rest of her life seemed to have vanished into that hazy mist. It suddenly hit me that the girl I had fallen in love with had long been eroded by time. She was not the woman standing in front of me now. I didn't say anything more. I just turned around and left her there. The next day, Clara went to work as if nothing had happened. She didn't offer an explanation, probably assuming that I would swallow my pride just as I had countless times before, that I would pretend nothing had happened. But after I threw the stale, untouched fish soup into the trash, I went out and filed for divorce. A marriage is like a dish of food. If you can't swallow it, there's no point in forcing it down. On the plane, watching the sprawling city shrink into a patchwork quilt below the clouds, I remembered first coming here for Clara. She had wanted to start her business here, so I had left my own culinary dreams behind to follow her. When I resigned, the owner of the restaurant where I worked was devastated. "You're the most promising chef we've had in years," he told me. "Stick with it and you'll go places. Why are you quitting?" My family had been chefs for generations, our skills even earning royal accolades in the distant past. I had wanted to continue that legacy, but all I could think about was Clara. My parents had died in an accident when I was only halfway through learning our family's secret recipes. I was raised by my grandmother, and when she passed away, I had no close family left. Perhaps because I had so few people in my life, I cherished Clara with everything I had, always compromising, always giving in just to keep her by my side. She often skipped meals for meetings, so I dedicated myself to cooking for her 3 times a day, giving up my dreams to accommodate her demanding schedule and becoming a stay-at-home husband. I did it willingly because I loved her. I naively believed that love was enough to conquer all. Thinking about it now, it was utterly foolish. Some things in life you just can't hold on to. It's like the song says, if you can't hold on to the sand in your hand, you might as well let it go. Returning to my hometown after so many years felt strange. The old apartment buildings had been repainted, and new, unfamiliar faces populated the streets. Only the lively buzz of the neighborhood remained the same, with the savory scent of barbecue hanging in the evening air. I bought some groceries, deciding to treat myself to a proper meal. Clara had a weak stomach, which meant we always had to avoid spicy foods. Consequently, I rarely got to eat the fiery dishes I personally loved. On the bus home, while mentally planning the night's menu, someone suddenly slumped against me. Startled, I turned to see a young woman in a black hoodie, her head down, looking completely drained of energy. Her dark hair was matted with sweat as she wobbled against my shoulder, a strange mix of tobacco and lemon scent emanating from her. "Sorry," she muttered weakly. "Low blood sugar? Do you have any sugar?" I hurriedly opened the bag of granulated sugar I'd bought for cooking. "Will this work?" Seeing the sugar cupped in my palm, she gave a resigned smile. "I guess it'll have to do." With that, she leaned in and took a little from my hand with her cool lips, the unexpected contact making me blush. I quickly stood up to help her to an empty seat. "Here, please sit down," I said. She nibbled on the sugar and then looked up at me. Beneath her tousled bangs, her eyes, which had seemed frail just moments before, now shone with a startling touch of beauty. "Thanks." It was only then that I properly noticed how pretty she was. She looked like she was just past 20, with a narrow nose and delicate monolids, accentuated by a hint of pink eyeshadow and framed by long, thick lashes that gave her a sharp, alluring look. "My pleasure," I replied, sneaking another glance at her. I didn't think much more of the encounter until I started cooking and realized I was out of sugar, meaning I'd have to make another trip to the store. Disappointed, I took off my apron and went to open the door, only to freeze in place. Right at the door next to mine, the same young woman from the bus was fumbling with her key, trying to unlock her door. The moment she saw me, her eyes lit up with recognition. "So it's you! You're the new neighbor, huh?" I nodded, amazed at the coincidence. I thought for a moment and then made some small talk. "Are you feeling any better?" She smiled. "No big deal. I just got so busy I forgot to eat today." I wasn't planning on saying anything more, but seeing how young she looked, I felt compelled to offer a bit of advice. When you're young, you have to take care of yourself and eat properly. Otherwise, your stomach will make you pay for it later. She had a rebellious air about her, yet she nodded sweetly. "Mm-hmm. What's that smell? Something smells incredible. Is that you cooking?" "Yeah, but I have to run back out to buy some more sugar." I watched as she sniffed the air like a curious puppy. "It smells amazing. What are you making?" "Tofu fish head soup and a few other simple dishes," I offered out of politeness. "Would you like to try some?" I was just being courteous, but her eyes suddenly lit up. "Really?" "Yes, absolutely." Without waiting for another word, she took the shopping bag from my hand, tucked one hand into her pocket, and waved the other at me. "Okay, I'll go buy the sugar. You keep an eye on the stove. I'll be right back." And just like that, I don't even know how it happened, but on my very first day back in my hometown, I ended up having dinner with this girl from next door. She ate with her head down, her cheeks puffed out with food, mumbling through her mouthfuls. "Leo, your cooking is absolutely amazing." I took a good look at this young woman who called herself Maya. She was clearly much younger than me, but after learning my name, she never called me brother or anything formal, just Leo. During our dinner, I found out that she was starting her own business and was incredibly busy, so short-staffed that she was doing the work of 3 people, which was why she often forgot to eat. "You have no idea," she said. "I've been living on instant noodles for a week straight. I haven't had a meal this good in ages." My eyes drifted to the black Richard Mille watch on her wrist. If I remembered correctly, Clara had one just like it in her extensive collection. You could buy a luxury car for the price of that watch, and now they were insanely expensive and hard to find even if you had the money. With the value of a small house on her wrist, she held up her empty bowl, her dark eyes looking right at me. "Can I please have another bowl of rice?" I nodded, feeling a bit helpless. That night, the entire pot of rice I had planned to use for fried rice the next day was almost completely polished off by Maya. Her appetite was truly mind-blowing. I kept glancing at her flat stomach, wondering where all that food was going. She probably felt a bit sheepish about it too, because she insisted on doing the dishes afterward. She popped her head out of the kitchen and asked, "Is there anything else you need me to do?" I thought for a second. "The light bulb in the living room is out. Could you change it?" I said it offhandedly, never expecting a girl who looked like her to know how to change a light bulb. But she went out, bought a new one, and actually did it. That night I thought I would lie awake for hours, my mind reeling from the fresh decision to divorce. But perhaps because Maya's unexpected presence had disrupted my thoughts, I didn't dwell on Clara at all. I slept like a baby. Over the next few days, I spent my time walking around the neighborhood and scouting a few potential locations. I wanted to pick up my culinary skills again, to chase that unfinished dream, starting with a small shop of my own. As night crept in, I was sitting on the couch, lost in thought, sketching out recipe ideas, when my phone suddenly buzzed. It was Clara. It had been 3 days since I had proposed the divorce, and this was the first time she had called. "When are you coming back?" Her tone was the same as always, impatient and demanding, as if I were the one being unreasonable. I replied calmly, "Clara, I'm not coming back." She chuckled, a humorless sound. "You really want a divorce? Leo, how long are you planning to keep this up?" I didn't want to get into another pointless argument. "Just sign the divorce papers and mail them to me. If you're unhappy with any of the terms, we can discuss them." Clara was silent for a moment, and then her tone became somber and cold. "Fine," she said, and hung up. Her call didn't really affect me much, because just then, Maya swung by for another meal. Lately, it felt like she had my apartment under surveillance. Every single time I started to cook, the doorbell would ring. But she never came empty-handed. She always brought something with her, and the gifts were progressively more expensive. There were in-season durians, fancy designer dinnerware, and aged tea cakes that looked priceless. If I tried to refuse, she would insist, saying she couldn't possibly eat or use them all by herself. By giving them to me, she reasoned, she was just creating more opportunities to have meals at my place. She would even help with the prep work, and was surprisingly handy in the kitchen. After a while, I couldn't bring myself to say no anymore, and we sort of stumbled into being regular meal buddies. An old family recipe for a special duck stew came to mind, and I wanted to get a fresh duck to try it out. The local supermarket had sales in the evening, so I went out for a stroll to pick one up. But maybe it was the sketchy neighborhood, or maybe it was just my bad luck, but on my way back, I got the distinct feeling that someone was following me. I glanced over my shoulder. The alleyway was dimly lit, and a man was walking casually not too far behind me. Something felt off. I was pretty sure I had seen the same man when I was leaving the supermarket. A cold sweat broke out all over me. Ignoring the possibility that I was just being paranoid, I quickened my pace, trying to shake him off. But he kept following. Just as I ducked into my apartment building, he entered right behind me. Scared out of my wits, I bolted up the stairs, fumbled with my key, and locked the door as fast as I could. Peeking through the peephole, I saw that he was nowhere in sight. I let out a huge sigh of relief, thinking it was over, but later that night I woke up to find the power was out. And maybe it was my imagination, but I could hear faint noises coming from just outside my door. Gathering my courage, I crept to the door and peeked through the peephole again. But it was pitch black outside. I couldn't see a thing. Still, I couldn't shake the sudden, terrifying thought that popped into my head. Someone is out there. I jumped back from the door, chills running from my head to my toes. With no time to question if I was overreacting, I frantically dialed 911. The precinct was far from my neighborhood, and the dispatcher said it would take them about 20 minutes to arrive. They told me to stay safe and not open the door. The noises outside grew louder. Being naturally timid, my first instinct, born of years of habit, was to call Clara. She picked up quickly. "Hello?" I leaned against the locked bedroom door, whispering into the phone. "Clara." Before I could say more, she cut me off with a voice dripping with disdain. "Changed your mind already? Leo, weren't you acting all tough before?" I was shaking all over and didn't have the energy to care about her attitude anymore. "Clara, someone is trying to break into my apartment. I'm so scared." What could she even do from so far away? It was just a reflex, a desperate habit of seeking her comfort in my most fearful moments. But Clara just laughed, a cold, mocking laugh. "Leo," she scoffed, "if you're looking for an excuse to come back, at least come up with something more believable." I found myself unable to continue speaking. I stayed silent for a long moment, and then just hung up. I wasn't really disappointed. We were planning on getting divorced anyway. With her acting like this, it didn't seem like a big deal. Yet, a profound sense of exhaustion washed over me. It felt like there was a hollow space in my chest where the wind could just blow right through. Even my fear turned somewhat numb, replaced by this overwhelming fatigue. The noise outside seemed to stop, but then a woman's voice suddenly rang out, sharp and clear. "What the hell are you doing?" It was Maya's voice. Then came a heavy thud. I hurriedly unlocked the door and dashed out into the hallway. I saw Maya standing over a middle-aged man she had just thrown to the ground. "I asked you what you're doing," she said harshly, her voice low and dangerous. "Trying to break into someone's home in the middle of the night?" The man groaned in pain, looking up at Maya with fear in his eyes. "No, nothing. I just got the wrong door." Maya sneered and moved to grab him, but he was surprisingly agile. He rolled on the ground, scrambled to his feet, and dashed down the stairs like a madman. Furious, Maya vaulted over the railing with one hand, landing lightly on the stairs below and grabbing the back of his collar. The man slipped right out of his jacket, leaving her holding the empty coat. "Shit," Maya cursed. She glanced back at me, still standing there dazed, and chose to come back to make sure I was okay. That night, the police came and took a statement. They said the guy was probably a habitual offender who had cut the power, waiting for me to come out and check the fuse box. Luckily, I hadn't gone out alone. Who knows what might have happened? After they left, I asked Maya, "What made you come out?" "I was just working out," she replied, still visibly upset that she hadn't caught the guy. "I heard some noise outside, so I came to check." "Thank you," I said, my face still pale from the ordeal. "I wouldn't have known what to do without you tonight." She looked at me for a moment, and then suddenly pulled me into a hug. I was enveloped by her presence, her warmth seeping through my thin sleepwear. I knew I should have pushed her away, but in that moment, I found a strange sense of comfort and safety in her embrace. We just stood there in the dimly lit hallway, holding each other. Her warm hand rested on my back, heating the cool air between us. The faint, familiar smell of tobacco and lemon lingered around her, like a web wrapping me up. Something inexplicable seemed to be brewing in the charged silence. My heartbeat quickened for a reason I couldn't quite place, so I awkwardly pulled away. "Thanks. Wait up," she said, unfazed. She went back to her apartment and returned a moment later with a pillow and a blanket. "You probably won't be able to get back to sleep now, but just to be safe, I'll sleep at your place tonight." She said it so naturally that it somehow made sense. I wanted to refuse, but the words got stuck in my throat. We had only just met, and the thought of spending the night together, even platonically, seemed a bit inappropriate. "Don't worry," she said, seeming to read my mind and grinning. "I'll sleep on the sofa. If you're still worried, just lock your bedroom door and get some sleep." I was still pretty shaken up at first, but knowing that Maya was just outside in the living room helped me to finally drift off. I didn't have a single dream all night. I woke up to a pleasant, savory aroma wafting from the kitchen. Thinking I must be dreaming, I slipped on my slippers and went to see Maya, wearing my apron, skillfully stirring a pot on the stove. When she saw me, she waved her spatula. "You're up. Go wash up and get ready to eat. I made porridge." Standing there in the corner of my own kitchen, I was suddenly dazed. I thought I was too old and jaded to be moved by something as simple as a bowl of porridge, but the gesture warmed me from the inside out. When Maya placed the bowl of sweet, steaming porridge in front of me, I couldn't help but say, "I didn't know you could cook." "I can't," Maya said proudly, "but I can learn. I just followed a video tutorial perfectly, step by step." I laughed. "Thanks, really. You don't have to do all this. I could have cooked." Maya suddenly turned serious, looking at me intently. "Leo, cooking is your hobby. It's not your duty. No one is obligated to cook for others. You don't have to do this." I was stunned. I had said it out of habit, because in my life with Clara, I had always been the one to do the cooking. She never cooked, not even once. If I got sick, a housekeeper would be called to prepare our meals. I never thought that someone would one day tell me that my passion was just a hobby, not an obligation. That someone would cook for me and tell me that I didn't need to do it. I lowered my head, a sudden, profound realization washing over me. I had been wrong for the past 10 years. Clara was right about one thing. I shouldn't have centered my entire life around her. Back then, I thought it was what was best for both of us. But now I realize that a marriage shouldn't be about one person endlessly conceding and erasing themselves. Before she left for the day, Maya reminded me, "Call me right away if anything happens." She smiled. "Don't worry, I'm here." The small shop was slowly coming together. I decorated it exactly how I liked, with just a few tables since I would be running it by myself for now. My plan was to finalize the menu and then pick a good day for the grand opening. With the busy days spent perfecting my recipes, I suddenly realized that I hadn't thought about Clara for quite a while. One afternoon, a security app on my phone pinged, notifying me of movement inside my old house. I clicked on the live feed and watched as Evan helped a drunken Clara stumble through the door, struggling to get her onto the couch. Clara frowned, curling up on the sofa. Her stomach was acting up again. "Medicine," she mumbled. Evan began rummaging through the cabinets, but had no clue where her specific medicine was kept. He finally gave up and ordered some from a delivery service. He brought her a glass of warm water. "The medicine will be here soon, just hang on." But when the delivery arrived, it was just over-the-counter stuff, not what Clara needed at all. Even after taking it, the pained expression on her face didn't ease one bit. Evan didn't realize that Clara's stomach medicine was custom-made by a specialized hospital far away from the city. It was a place I had painstakingly researched and located years ago. Every 3 months, I would make the trip to get her a new supply, which I kept stored at home. I had done this for 10 years without fail, never skipping a single trip, no matter the weather. Whenever her stomach acted up, I would also prepare a special stomach-soothing soup for her. After the soup and her custom medicine, her pain would usually subside. A few years back, her condition had improved significantly with my dedicated care. But over the past year, as she started coming home less and eating irregularly, her stomach issues had flared up again. Now that I was gone, there was no one to get her the medication, and she must have run out. And there was no one there to make her soup, either. On the screen, Clara pulled Evan close, leaning her head into the crook of his neck. At first, he blushed, looking shy as he tried to hold her. But then his expression froze. I heard Clara mumble a name, but it wasn't his. "Leo," she whispered. I looked down at my phone, unsure of how I was supposed to feel. "I'm not Leo," Evan struggled, trying to pull away. "Clara, you've got the wrong person." Clara barely opened her eyes, and realizing he wasn't who she expected, she shoved him away forcefully. "Who are you? Where's Leo? Get out! Leo, Leo!" Evan's face darkened, his expression a mixture of frustration and embarrassment. He grabbed his things and stormed out of the house. I put down my phone and closed my eyes. The rumbling of trucks outside woke me up in the early hours of the morning. Half asleep, I grabbed my phone to check the time and, out of habit, glanced at the security feed. I was surprised to see Clara still sitting in the living room. She seemed sober now, just sitting there quietly in the dark, looking utterly lonely. After a long while, she got up and began to search a drawer for her stomach medicine. But just as I expected, the boxes were all empty. The drawer was bare. She collapsed onto the floor, lost in thought. After some time, she simply sat there on the floor and lit a cigarette. Smoking always made her stomach ache worse, but she didn't seem to care. I didn't feel any sense of satisfaction or victory, not even a little bit. I soon put my phone down. The next morning when I woke up, the camera showed she was still in the living room, surrounded by a small mountain of cigarette butts. She hadn't slept at all. Evan called while I was watching TV in my own living room. Outside, a heavy summer rain was pouring, the raindrops splattering against the window pane and leaving blurry traces on the glass. "Leo," he said, "we need to talk." I frowned. "What is there to talk about? If you're planning to divorce her, then why do you keep bothering her? Or are you just playing hard to get, planning to backtrack on the whole thing?" I don't know what you're talking about, I said, about to hang up when he angrily cut in. Quit acting. If it weren't for you, Clara wouldn't have suddenly gone cold on me. I'm telling you, this won't work. Do you know what she used to say about you? That you're always hovering around her, and she got tired of it ages ago. She said that I remind her of her youth, that she's happy when she's with me. I couldn't help but sneer. Oh, really? If she likes you so much, why don't you go and find her? Where is she now? Suddenly, there was a knock at my door. I assumed it was the milk tea I had ordered and went to open it in my slippers. Evan didn't respond on the phone, but after a moment he gritted his teeth and said, She went to find you. Are you happy now, Leo? Even if you take her back, it won't matter. She'll just get tired of you again. Once a cheater, always a cheater. She'll figure out soon enough who she really wants. His shamelessness left me dumbfounded. But I hadn't thought Clara would actually come all this way to find me. We hadn't been in touch at all since the split. I didn't want to argue with him, so I cut him off. Quit with the bullshit. I can't stand this crap. I hung up the phone, but when I opened the door, I froze. Clara was standing there, drenched from the rain, her lips pale, looking straight at me. She was bedraggled and looked exhausted. She had actually come. What are you doing here? I asked, completely confused. You could have just mailed me the signed divorce papers. There was no need to hand them over in person. Clara looked at me for a long time, her eyes searching my face, and then she suddenly said, Leo, come back. I found the situation utterly absurd. After a year of constant arguing, half a year of the silent treatment, and 2 months of divorce negotiations, she just shows up at my door asking me to return. Are you serious? I didn't want to say more and was about to close the door. Just then, my upstairs neighbor, Mrs. Wong, came bustling down the stairs. Whoa, it's raining cats and dogs. My scooter is still outside. She saw Clara standing at my door and cautiously asked, Leo, who is this? I felt a warmth spread through my chest at her neighborly concern. She's, an old friend. Thanks for checking, Mrs. Wong. When she got a good look at Clara's face, the suspicion in her eyes vanished, replaced by a friendly light. Oh, Leo, your friend is gorgeous. Does she have a boyfriend? My nephew is single, you know. She's married, Mrs. Wong, I said quickly. Mrs. Wong smacked her lips, still glancing at Clara before heading down the stairs. What a pity. Clara held on to the door, looking a bit shocked. Was it true? Someone really tried to break into your apartment? I looked at her coldly. What do you think? I thought you were just making it up. Her expression was complicated. Forgive me, I sneered. If I had to rely on you, I'd probably be dead by now. Take your worthless apologies elsewhere. Leo. Clara grabbed my hand, water dripping from her wet hair onto my arm. She pressed her lips together into a thin line. I'm serious. I overreacted before. We've come so far together, there's no point in making things uglier than they already are. If you come back, I can send Evan to a branch office in another city. He won't bother you anymore. How about that? I looked at the woman I had loved since we were teenagers, feeling a bit dazed. Clara was suggesting that we just pretend everything was fine, that I go back to my old life of circling around her every need, that we just forget her straying and her change of heart, as if nothing had ever happened. But how could I? How can anyone tolerate the person they love betraying them? Yet she said it so casually, as if she was absolutely certain that I would continue to put up with anything for her. Because she knows I love her. She was using my love for her as a weapon against me. I never realized until this very moment that those pure, passionate feelings from my youth had become twisted and rotten over the years, completely unrecognizable. Get out, I said, trying to close the door, but she blocked it with her body. Leo, she said, seeming genuinely puzzled. You care about Evan, don't you? What is it that you want from me? What else do you want me to do? Just then, a voice came from behind me. Leo, who is this? I turned to see Maya, wrapped in nothing but a towel, casually drying her wet hair. Her toned back muscles formed a neat V-line. Clara froze, her eyes widening in shock. She looked from Maya to me, and a furious anger ignited in her gaze. "Leo, who is she?" I was about to speak when Maya came over and playfully hugged my arm, reaching out her hand towards Clara. "You must be Leo's ex-wife, right? Ah, I've heard so much about you. It's nice to meet you. I'm Leo's current partner." It was complete nonsense, of course. She had just come over because her water heater was broken again, and she needed to use my shower. But strangely enough, I didn't correct her. I just went along with Maya's story. Clara's face turned deathly pale. For a moment, I thought she would just turn around and leave in disgust. But she held it together, taking a deep, shuddering breath to calm herself. "Leo, I can understand if you go out and have some fun when you're upset. I don't mind." The way she said, "I don't mind," was laced with the sound of gritted teeth. She closed her eyes for a second. "Come back with me now, and I'll pretend this never happened." I almost wanted to applaud her for the magnanimous performance she was putting on. I mocked her. "Ruby, are you trying to say that since you've cheated too, we can just call it even and continue to pretend that nothing is wrong?" Clara said nothing, but her expression told me that was exactly what she thought. I found it laughable. Suddenly, I wasn't sure what it was that I had been fighting to protect all these years. It felt like our love had mutated into an ugly, distorted monstrosity without me even noticing. Maya suddenly laughed. She sized Clara up with a smirk. "I heard you found yourself someone younger. Well, who doesn't like them young? They're fresh and full of energy. Turns out Leo does too." She hugged my arm tighter. "I'm only 21. Leo has me now. Why would he ever go back to you, an old cabbage? I've got everything you have and more. Wake up, lady." She kept calling her lady, but every word she said was like a sharp stab to Clara's heart. I was a little afraid Clara might actually pass out from sheer anger. "All right, that's enough. We need to rest now," Maya said, turning to me. Then she looked back at Clara. "Do you have any cash on you? If not, I can transfer you some money so you can get a hotel room for the night." She held me tighter, a mischievous look in her eyes. "We've got things to do tonight." Before she could finish her sentence, Clara's hand flew out and slapped her hard across the face. While Maya's taunts were certainly asking for it, I was still shocked, but Maya wasn't angry. She just laughed, wiping a trickle of blood from the corner of her mouth with her thumb, and then slapped Clara right back with equal force. "Enough!" I shouted, stepping between them to shield Maya and glaring at Clara. "Clara, are you crazy?" Maya's fierce demeanor vanished in an instant as she grabbed my arm, playing the part of the innocent victim. "Leo, look at what she did! It hurts!" "You're protecting her?" Clara seemed utterly bewildered. She didn't even bother to wipe the blood from her own face as she suddenly exploded with rage. "Leo, we've been together for 10 years, and you're standing by her side in front of me? You've only known her for a few days." "Yeah? And didn't you stand by Evan's side in front of me before?" I laughed lightly, the sound devoid of any humor. "Clara, stop interfering in my life. We're over." Clara looked at me, dazed. She hadn't even flinched when Maya had hit her, but after I said those words, she suddenly seemed to crumble, as if her entire spirit had been completely drained out of her. "Fine," she said after a long silence, forcing a brittle smile. "Leo, you're amazing." With that, she turned and staggered down the stairs, the dim, flickering light of the hallway passing over her pale face. I stood there, watching her go, my heart aching with an intense, hollow pain. "Thanks for today," I said to Maya, trying hard to keep my voice steady, though it came out shaky. "Let me treat that cut on your lip." I led Maya into the living room and carefully cleaned the small wound with iodine. She looked down at me as I worked, a hint of her usual rebelliousness still lingering in her pretty face. Because of the cut, our faces were very close, and I could smell the faint scent of my own body wash on her skin. "Does it hurt?" I asked genuinely. Maya suddenly said, "Leo, you should consider me." I looked up. Maya's gaze was direct and openly aggressive. "I'm good-looking, I'm rich, I'm young, and I'm capable," she said, emphasizing the word capable. "Leo, I wouldn't be like your ex-wife. Give it a shot with me." I couldn't help but laugh. She was always so blunt and confident, like a cheeky, charming rogue. "What's so funny?" Maya asked, dissatisfied. "I'm serious about liking you." I continued applying the ointment, speaking lightly. "You don't really care about me. It's just a whim. You should be dating someone your own age. We're not right for each other." Maya fell silent, her face falling into a pout. "Please, I'm 21, not 16. I know whether it's a whim or not. Right now, Leo, I really like you. Your moronic ex-wife doesn't deserve you." I put the iodine away. "All right. It's not that I wasn't tempted." Maya had every reason to be confident. Just as she said, it's hard not to be swayed by someone like her. A young, beautiful, 21-year-old woman looking you straight in the eye and telling you that she likes you. Who wouldn't feel moved? But I've lost a major gamble on love once before. I couldn't take that kind of chance again. The most beautiful yet most fragile thing in the world is a promise. We stayed in silence for a long time after the treatment was done. Before she left to go back to her apartment, Maya said to me, "Leo, I know your last marriage hurt you badly. It's normal to have concerns, but I'll prove to you that choosing me won't bring you sadness again." When my friends heard about my impending divorce, they all gently tried to talk me out of it. "You went through so much with Clara," one said. "Now that she's finally made it big, you're just going to give her up to some other man? Isn't that a huge loss?" Another added, "Yeah, and I heard Clara has been distancing herself from that other guy. She used to bring him everywhere, but not lately. It seems like she had him transferred to a different branch. People want to change sometimes, it's just human nature. At least she still comes home and gives you the money, right?" They meant well, and they weren't entirely wrong, but this wasn't the life I wanted. We're only here on this earth for a few short decades, and I didn't want to waste a single moment of it with someone whose heart had already changed. I had to go back to the city for a family matter. It had only been a few months away, yet everything seemed unfamiliar and strange. Clara picked me up in her car. The bruise on her face had mostly healed. We didn't talk much on the drive. Only when we got out of the car did she softly say, "Thank you." I just nodded. "Grandma was always good to me. It's only right that I come to visit her." Clara's grandmother was seriously ill. The only thing she cared about now was her grandchildren's happiness, and her last wish was to see Clara and me together. Clara had asked me not to tell her about our divorce, and I had agreed. Her grandmother had always been exceptionally kind to me. When she found out how much I loved traditional smoked meat, she would prepare some and send it to me every year. Back then, she was already quite old, and her family would tell her not to bother, but she would just grin and say, "Leo loves it." In just a few short months, Clara's grandmother seemed to have withered away to just skin and bones. Her face was lined with deep wrinkles, and her half-closed eyes slowly brightened when she saw us enter the room. She reached out her thin, rough hand to hold mine. "Leo, you're here?" My eyes stung with tears. "Grandma," I choked out, unable to say more. She looked at both of us, barely managing a faint smile. "Don't cry. Everyone has their day. Kids, don't cry. I've lived a good life. Seeing you two happy is enough for me. Now I can rest easy." Clara held my other hand tightly, her voice dry. "Grandma, we'll be good." Grandma paused, then turned her gaze to Clara. "Leo has been with you all these years. Now that you have money, don't shortchange him. You must be genuine with him," she whispered hoarsely. "True feelings are rare in this world. Someone who truly cares for you can't be bought with money." Clara's hand trembled, almost imperceptibly. "Okay, Grandma." After Grandma had fallen asleep, Clara and I stood quietly outside the room. She took a cigarette out from her pocket, but just held on to it, not lighting it. We stood there in the silent hospital corridor until she finally spoke first. "Leo, I realize now where I went wrong. I thought I was just tired of the routine, but I didn't see how much you were doing for me behind the scenes. These last few days I've thought a lot. I was never truly into Evan. It was just the thrill of something new. We've ended things completely. I promise I will never make these mistakes again. Let's reconcile. Let's go back to how we were. We can have a child and be a happy family." Her face showed a strange, desperate kind of hope, as if she really believed in the perfect future she was describing. But I just found it laughable. Have a kid, only to pass on the genes of unfaithfulness? Clara's smile froze on her face. She sighed. "I know how much I've hurt you. It's okay, Leo. It was always you waiting for me before. Now it's my turn to wait for you. I won't give up." Disgusted, I decided to go in and see Grandma one last time before leaving. Suddenly, there were hurried footsteps and an angry voice behind us. "Clara, did you dump me just to get back with him?" I turned to see that Evan had somehow shown up at the hospital. Clara's brow twitched in annoyance. "Why are you here?" Evan's voice caught in his throat. "Are you just running out on me after using me, Clara? I won't let that happen." Clara, annoyed, dropped her sweet and pleading demeanor. "I've already given you enough compensation. I am not going to divorce Leo to marry you. Get that thought out of your head right now." Evan stepped back, his face a mask of disbelief and tears. He couldn't believe she would turn on him so harshly. I watched, completely unsurprised. Clara's inherent selfishness meant that she didn't really love either of us. She could easily abandon me after 10 years of marriage. What was less than a year with Evan to her? Just as I thought Evan would leave, heartbroken, he gritted his teeth and slammed open the hospital room door with a loud crash. Grandma stirred awake, and Evan rushed to her bedside, pointing a shaking finger at me. "Grandma! She and him are already divorced. I'm your real grandchild now, and Clara wants to toss me aside. Grandma, you have to stop her. She's carrying my child." He pulled out an ultrasound image from his pocket, waving it frantically in front of Grandma's face. "See, Grandma, it might be a boy, your great-grandchild." Grandma looked pained, and he pointed at Clara, trying to speak through his grief. "Help Clara keep her baby, Grandma. How could she even think of aborting her own child?" Grandma's face turned a deep red. Sensing that something was terribly wrong, I grabbed Evan. "Let go!" Daniel froze. Grandma's hand, which had been pointing at Clara, suddenly lost its color, turning an ashen white. Then, that hand dropped lifelessly onto the bed. Everyone was stunned. After a moment of shocked silence, I yelled, "Doctor! Doctor!" In the end, Grandma was gone. The doctor said she was already on her last legs. If she had been taken care of and kept calm, she might have lasted a few more days. But she had gotten so worked up that her weak heart just couldn't hang on. Evan seemed completely stunned by what had happened, just standing frozen in the corner of the room. He probably only thought that the old woman cared deeply about family and was hoping that she could say a few words to convince Clara to stay with him. He gingerly tugged on Clara's sleeve. Clara turned around, inch by inch, the air in the room so thick it felt like you could cut it with a knife. Her eyes and brows flickered with a terrifying anger. I had never seen her look so frightening before. Slap! The smack was so hard it sent Evan stumbling back 1/2 meter. He hit the ground, his lips split and trickling blood. He just held his face and stared up at Clara in shock. Her voice was as cold as ice. "Get out." Clara's father then stepped up, his eyes red with grief and rage, and kicked Clara hard. "This is all you're doing. You could have lived a good life, but you had to mess around. You dragged your drama to your grandmother, and that's what killed her." The family drama didn't end, even by nightfall. Clara's father was set on beating her, and Evan, bizarrely, kept trying to protect her. Clara just told Evan to leave. I was completely exhausted by it all, so I just walked away. Whatever happened from now on, it was no longer my concern. I just felt an immense sadness for Grandma. She was a kind soul her entire life, and she didn't even get to have peace at the very end. Grandma's funeral was held a few days later. I went to pay my respects, and then left immediately after. Clara's mother grabbed my hand, unable to speak through her tears. I just patted her hand reassuringly. Clara's family was actually pretty decent, but the ties that bound me to them were now spent. Back home, I was completely caught up with getting my restaurant ready. It wasn't a huge place, but there was still a lot to prepare. Luckily, Maya was always there helping out, which eased a lot of the load. When the first snow of the winter fell, I was tidying up some old boxes and stumbled upon an old tin box. Inside were letters that Clara had written to me back in the day. Back in high school, before we had phones, we used to write letters to each other every single day. I paused and picked one up. "Leo, let's walk home together tomorrow. This guy in my class has been bothering me. I told him I have a boyfriend, but he doesn't believe me. It's so annoying. My mom made dumplings today. They were so good. Come over for dinner tomorrow." The teacher talked to me about us dating today. He said we're too young and that it's just a phase. He said it wouldn't last. What nonsense. We'll always be good. We'll always be together. "Leo, let's bury this time capsule together. Brian gave it to me, plus, tomorrow's the weekend. Perfect for hanging out." Reading that last letter, a forgotten memory popped into my mind. When we were 18, Clara and I had buried a time capsule under the big camphor tree at our high school. We had written things to our future selves, promising to dig it up 10 years later. It turns out, this year marked that decade. I don't really remember what I wrote back then. Feeling a strange mix of emotions, I decided I had to go and dig it up. Heading downstairs, I paused. Clara was standing there, covered in a light dusting of snow. It looked like she had been waiting there for quite a while. "What do you want?" I asked, frowning instinctively. Clara's lips trembled. "Leo, I'm here to apologize. I've thought long and hard, and I think I owe you a sincere apology." I tried to walk past her, mumbling, "Forget it. Just staying out of my sight is the best apology you can give me." She grabbed my arm, her eyes red and strained. "Leo, what will it take for you to come back?" I meant to just shrug her off, but for some reason I pulled out the old letter she had written and passed it to her. "I'm going to dig up our time capsule. Are you coming?" The school hadn't changed much in 10 years. The buildings had a fresh coat of paint, and a new athletic field had been laid. But surprisingly, the little corner shop was still standing, its sign just a bit bigger and more weathered. We stepped inside, and the old shopkeeper didn't remember us, but she chuckled as she handed over 2 steaming hot drinks. The old camphor tree seemed sturdier than before, its branches now piled high with snow that sometimes gently fluttered off in the wind. Borrowing a shovel from the shop, I started digging in the spot I remembered. The ground was frozen and tough. Clara stepped in, stomping hard with her boots to break up the frozen soil. The marking stones we had placed back then were long gone. It took us ages of digging before we finally heard the clink of the shovel hitting the metal tin box. Clara pulled it out gently and took the time capsule from within. It was still brightly colored, looking just like it did the day we buried it. Only the paper inside had yellowed with time. Her handwriting was a bit immature. "First wish, marry Leo. Second wish, be with Leo forever." 18-year-old Clara had asked her 28-year-old self a question across the span of a decade. 10 years on, did my wishes come true? I hope they did. Below that was my own handwriting. My wish is to be with Clara forever. The echo of a young girl's earnest words lingered in the cold air, yet 10 years later, things were utterly and irrevocably different. Clara stared at the note, frozen in the swirling storm of snowflakes. Finally, her fingers trembled, and tears spilled down her cheeks as she looked up at me. "Leo." Her voice was raw with pain. I finally understand what you wanted all along." I just smiled, a sad, empty smile, and tore the note into small pieces, letting them scatter into the wind and snow. Like forgotten whispers, they spun away, disappearing from sight. Back then, I could never have imagined that our marriage would come crashing down so devastatingly. Those youthful promises were like arrows shot into the future, piercing through the years only to hit home with a sharp, unexpected pain. 10 years ago, Leo," I said quietly, "your wish didn't come true. Clara and I are moving further and further apart." I dusted the dirt from my hands and stood up. "Let's go." Clara, however, suddenly tugged at my coat and knelt down in the snow. She pleaded, "Leo, please, just give me one more chance. I promise I will never hurt you again." She choked up, lowering her head, and her hot tears created a small, melted pit in the pristine snow. "Don't leave me." I kept my hands in my pockets, watching her calmly. "Clara, don't do this, it's just too pitiful." I walked a long distance away, but when I looked back one last time, Clara was still kneeling in the snow, a lonely figure slowly being covered by the falling snowflakes. At some point, Maya disappeared. I completely lost touch with her. She vanished on a snowy day as suddenly and mysteriously as she had first appeared in my life. I never saw her again. I felt down for a while, but having been through the ordeal with Clara, and since I'd only known Maya for a short time, I gradually began to let go. I figured she was so young, and the things she had said were probably just words spoken in the heat of the moment. We weren't from the same world, and after our brief intersection we were always bound to return to our own separate lives. Luckily, my restaurant, Leo's Corner, finally opened. My plan was to expand it and rename it Leo's Dining House in the future. From the very first day, customers couldn't stop praising my cooking. In just a few days, the restaurant was bustling with activity, and some patrons even promoted it for me on social media, completely for free. Things got so busy that I had to hire 2 more people to help out in the kitchen and with service. Little by little, I stopped thinking about Maya. But sometimes, when I would come home and see the perpetually dark and silent door of her apartment next to mine, I would still pause for a moment. Until one day, after a particularly busy shift, I went home, opened my door, and froze. There was Maya, wearing my apron, with a small kitten perched on her shoulder, peeking out from the kitchen to smile at me. "You're back." I was a bit dazed. It felt like I had traveled back in time half a year to when we were at our best. "You?" Maya pouted, then walked over and hugged me tightly, as if she were trying to merge me into her own body. She buried her face in my shoulder. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "That day my old man sent someone to take me back. He said he was in poor health and insisted that I go back to get married and inherit the family business. I refused, so they took my phone and locked me at home, saying I couldn't come out until I changed my mind. I really wanted to contact you. I tried to run away several times." She lifted her pant leg, showing me a fierce, angry scar on her calf, a bitter smile on her face. I climbed down from the 2nd story once, but I still got caught. I was stunned. Instinctively, I reached out to touch the raised scar tissue. "Does it still hurt?" Maya's expression softened. "It hasn't hurt for a long time." "So, how did you finally get out?" "The game I was developing was almost done. After I got taken back, the team at my company launched it as planned. It blew up. It earned over $80 million in just the first day, and the revenue just kept growing. I went on a hunger strike to protest, and my old man couldn't stand it any longer. Since I had proven I could build my own successful business, he finally had to compromise. He said I could hire a professional manager to handle the family business instead." She said it all so casually, but I could see that she had grown thinner and looked haggard. Clearly, the struggle wasn't as easy as she was making it sound. Maya hugged me again, her voice morose. "Leo, what should I do? I went back on my word. I said I would wait for you, but then I just disappeared. You must have been so upset. I patted her back, holding her in silence. Outside, it began to snow again, fat, lazy flakes drifting down. Winter's voice caught a little. You have no idea how much I missed you. The old man wanted me to marry some guy I didn't even like. I was so scared that by the time I finally got away, you'd have gotten back together with your ex-wife, or been snatched away by someone else. I teased her gently. Yeah, my ex-wife is still insisting on getting back together. I've been thinking about it these past few days. Maya didn't say anything. She just stared at me intently. She had single eyelids, and when she looked down, the outer corners of her eyes sloped up sharply, making her seem a bit domineering. Surprisingly, she didn't get mad. She merely said calmly, "Come and eat. I made red wine braised beef." When she pulled out the bottle of wine she had used for the beef, I nearly spat out my food. She had used a $30,000 bottle of Screaming Eagle just for braising beef. "Oh, you spoiling brat," I lamented. Maya just smirked indifferently. "That kind of wine doesn't even make it into our main wine cabinet at home. But there's still half a bottle left, so we might as well drink it." I didn't doubt her for a second. That night, who knows how much we drank? We initially just planned to finish the half bottle, but then somehow we opened more. By the end of it, I was laughing and crying, not even sure what nonsense I was spouting, nearly crawling under the table. Maya propped me up, responding to everything I said with a patient, "Mm-hmm." When I opened my eyes again, it was already midnight. My head was spinning. As I was debating whether to get up and go to the bathroom, Maya stepped out, loosely draped in a towel. Still groggy, I was suddenly struck by a curious thought. After being confined at home for so long, how did she manage to maintain her figure so well? But then I noticed something was off. Maya stood by the window, looking down at me. Then, with one hand, she tugged her towel away. The moonlight cast a pale glow across her face, and though she showed no emotion, it seemed creepy enough to make me shiver. "What do you want?" I propped myself up, instinctively shuffling back a little. Maya smiled, revealing a gleaming white grin. "You, man. Young people are terrifying." Before I lost consciousness, that was my last coherent thought. Maya and I didn't get together right away. The next morning, when she woke up and asked for a commitment, I felt like her intense stare was about to devour me alive. I was scared of promises made by young women. I feared that my relationship with Maya would just end up like my last one, and I wasn't ready to handle that kind of heartbreak again. So we made a 3-year pact. If, in 3 years, she still wanted to choose me, then we would be together. Time went on, and my restaurant became a popular spot in the city, always bustling with customers. I opened 2 more branches, expanding the business successfully. I had mastered all of my family's old recipes, and even started crafting new, innovative dishes, which were surprisingly well received. Everything in my life seemed to be improving, and the painful events of the past felt like they were finally fading away, like smoke dissipating in the wind. I stopped thinking about it all, unless someone brought up their situations in passing. The whole drama with Clara and Evan had been all the rage for a while. But later, I found out that Clara wasn't even pregnant. Evan hadn't wanted to break up with her, so he tried to use a non-existent child as leverage, but it backfired spectacularly. He ended up causing the death of Clara's grandmother, cutting all possible ties with Clara completely. I heard through the grapevine that Clara's family got their revenge on him. He was scammed out of all his money, picked up a gambling habit, and ended up having to sell himself to pay off his massive debts. He moved from one low-end place to another, contracting all kinds of health issues along the way. Now nobody knows where he is, or if he's even still alive. The next time I heard about Clara was when an old friend, Brian, called me. He said Clara needed emergency surgery because her stomach had perforated from drinking too much. "After you left," he said, "she became a complete alcoholic. She was hospitalized multiple times for throwing up blood at work. This time the doctors said it's really serious, and she might have to get part of her stomach removed." Brian sighed. You guys were together for so long. Can you really just stand by and watch her destroy herself like this? He sent me a short video. Clara was lying on a hospital bed, looking much thinner and frail. Her eyelashes fluttered slightly against her pale cheeks. The vibrant, powerful person she once was had completely vanished, leaving only an empty shell of her former self. I didn't say anything and just hung up the phone. I thought about sending Clara a message, but then I put my phone down. This was her choice, her path, and her destiny. I didn't want to interfere or carry any more of her weight. That's just how it is sometimes. We went from the heights of young love to being completely fed up with each other. And ending up as strangers isn't the worst possible outcome. Summer nights by the beach are cool and refreshing. Maya and I often take walks there after sunset. The moonlight was bright one evening, and she kept playfully splashing water on my legs, refusing to stop no matter how much I protested. I reached out to grab her, but she caught my hand instead. A cold, metallic object slipped onto my finger. Looking down, I saw a ring. The diamond on it glistened softly in the moonlight. I was stunned. Maya knelt on one knee in the wet sand, looking up at me. The starlight sparkled in her dark eyes, and in them I could see my own reflection. "I like you, Leo," she said. I blushed. Why so sudden? She said she liked me almost every day, and I had nearly become deaf to it. But I didn't expect this, out of the blue. "I mean it," she said, her voice completely serious. "Leo, it's been 3 years, and I still like you. In fact, I like you even more now than I did before. I've figured out my feelings. Let's get married." I didn't say anything. I just looked down at her, at this incredible, infuriating, and wonderful woman kneeling before me. She tilted her head. "Leo?" I laughed and pulled her up to her feet. Then I leaned down, and our cool kiss lingered in the warm, salty evening breeze.